We're brilliant at simplifying things, of seeing really complex issues and simplifying them. So they're all skills that we don't test in schools and a psychometric test wouldn't pick up, but they're really vital skills in every workplace now. I think what's frustrating for so many dyslexic people is that we can see opportunities in businesses and things, but often other people can't see those things until we explain how we've got there, and we often can't explain how we've got there. It's very frustrating until your teammates understand your strengths and you really understand them yourself.
That's Kate Griggs. She's the award-winning founder of the charity Made by Dyslexia. Her efforts helped introduce the skill of dyslexic thinking to dictionaries and LinkedIn. Aside from that, she's also the author of 2 books on dyslexia and the host of the Lessons in Dyslexic Thinking podcast. So you'll learn 1, why dyslexia matters for everyone in the workplace. 2, the surprising indicators that you may be dyslexic. And 3, how anyone can develop dyslexic thinking skills. And if you want to get a quick summary write-up of the actionable takeaways from this conversation, I recommend you sign up for our free Gold Nugget email newsletter found at awesomeatyourjob.com. I'm Pete Mockaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Kate. Kate, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Well, I'm excited to chat. We're over 1,000 episodes into this series, and not once have we had an episode on dyslexia. So I would love to start by putting you on the spot and tell us, why should the average knowledge-working professional give thought and attention to understanding dyslexia and its impact at work?
Well, for several reasons. Firstly, dyslexia is 1 in 5. So 20% of us in every workplace will be dyslexic. A lot of dyslexics won't know that they're dyslexic, though, because it isn't routinely picked up at school. So a lot of people discover through their kids when maybe their children are having struggles at school. But the reason it's really important that you should know about it is that dyslexic people have exactly the skills that our AI world of work needs. So we index very highly on all of the soft skills or power skills that we're now beginning to call them. So things like creative thinking, complex problem solving, interpersonal skills, innovation, all of those things are things that dyslexics are naturally really, really good at. So it's important that you recognize those skills and lean into them as a dyslexic person.
Well, that's an intriguing setup right there. Thank you. So if 1 in 5 of us have it, and yet very rarely is it diagnosed, how do we know? Are we one of those 5? How do we determine that?
When you know about dyslexia, it's actually quite easy to spot. Dyslexic people have what I describe as a spiky profile. So with a normal cognitive profile, people are sort of in one, either average or above average or below average across most things. Dyslexic people have things that they are exceptionally good at. So they'll be in the top percentiles, but they'll also have things that they're exceptionally bad at, which is in the bottom percentiles. So, and those things are the things that we tend to measure intelligence with. Certainly exams and tests at school and a lot of psychometric tests are based on our kryptonite, if you like, whereas the superpowers that dyslexics have are these soft skills of creativity. So you can spot a dyslexic person if they appear to be really, really brilliant at something, but then their work and their written work just doesn't give you the same indication. So that's a really easy way of spotting a dyslexic colleague. But also, if you're a dyslexic person, it's just that you find some things really, really easy and other things really tricky. And I think the other thing that almost every dyslexic will struggle with throughout life is bad spelling. So I think if you spot a spelling mistake, think dyslexia.
Well, you mentioned bad spelling, and I think that's what most of us, when we hear the word dyslexia, that's what we think of. It's like, oh, it's kind of hard to read because letters are mixed up and it's tricky. But are there, in fact, sort of multiple varieties or categories or facets associated with dyslexia?
There are. It's like the sort of spiky profile that I mentioned. You know, not all dyslexics is going to be bad at the range of things that dyslexics can be bad at, or good at them either. So I'll give you an example. My entire family are dyslexic. So my dad was, my brother is, both my kids are, my husband is as well. And I think we all have a sort of different pattern of strengths and challenges. So My husband's actually really good at spelling because he has a really strong visual memory. So he can visualize a word to spell it. So he might struggle with some sort of irregular words, but mainly he's a very good speller. Some dyslexic people can be actually very, very good at maths. I am in the camp that is not so great at maths. So you either seem to be really good or really bad. So it is a real pattern of strengths and challenges. That's why it's important to really understand what you're good at and do much more of it and delegate what you're not so good at.
Well, I suppose, well, maybe this is my big reveal that I'm dyslexic, or I guess I sort of assumed.
That happens a lot, by the way.
I sort of assumed that all humans had areas in which they had great strengths and yet also great deficiencies. So, for example, what comes to mind for me is I can just generate ideas by the boatful. So many ideas, it's overwhelming, and I can't even possibly execute all of them. And so that's kind of cool and handy. But on the flip side, I will have a really hard time if someone gives me directions to sort of just, go back the way you came. It's like, that's not going to work for me. In the world before ubiquitous Google Maps on smartphones, I got lost kind of a lot. And I'll also get lost if I'm even playing a video game like Fortnite. So does that sound like a dyslexic profile or something else?
It does sound like a dyslexic profile. I think if they're, like I say, it's a real pattern of strengths, and there's just irregular things that most people are really good at that you really struggle with. And I think it definitely does sound like a dyslexic profile. But I mean, you'd have to tell me more about what you're bad at, probably, for me to be able to tell you. I'm sure you don't want to share it on
drawing three-dimensional shapes. I am bad at that. I would say processing mail and email. More so just because I find it kind of boring and I have so many exciting ideas I want to run after. So yeah, those are some things I'm bad at.
Yeah, I think if you think of dyslexia is really just a different way of processing information, and the regular way that we process information in work and in education is very much a sort of written format with lots of information coming at you as words. And dyslexic people are not brilliant at that. They have other strengths. But that's not to say if you're picked up and given good reading instruction, every dyslexic person can read. So it isn't just not being able to read either. But there's loads and loads of information on our website, or we've done some training with LinkedIn that's free on LinkedIn Learning, because we work with LinkedIn to make dyslexic thinking a skill. So it's a searchable skill now on LinkedIn. So there's lots you can learn. And we have our own podcast called Lessons in Dyslexic Thinking. So if you start learning about it more, you'll soon understand whether you are or not.
Okay. And is there, what's perhaps the quickest, easiest way of assessing?
We've actually got a checklist test on our website. So check that out, because that's a really good indication as well. I mean, it is just a checklist test, but if it says you're likely to be dyslexic, then you almost certainly are.
Okay. Well, so let's talk about this dyslexic thinking skills in a moment. First, I'd love to dig into perhaps the dangers of the dark side, because I think there's vast levels of unawareness to your message and what you're putting out here, that dyslexia is quite common. And what are the dangers of folks not knowing this and making assessments or judgments or decisions in that darkness?
I think the not knowing is a really big cause of low self-esteem. It's a big cause of people not actually pushing themselves to the jobs and the opportunities that they really should be pushing themselves towards. So there's even more of a dark side that we tend not to talk about as a charity, because we're very sort of pro the positivity. But if you look at children that are excluded from schools, or even straight through into the prisons, a very overrepresentatively high number of people are dyslexic, because particularly if you are not taught to read and write properly, your trajectory in life is pretty bad. And for a lot of people, particularly from disadvantaged backgrounds, that can be a really big issue. So there are some real societal issues of not identifying dyslexic or dyslexic people. But I think the main thing from a personal level is that you can go through life thinking you're not very good at all sorts of things. And Also not realizing the things that you are good at, you're actually really good at them, and they are dyslexic thinking skills. And that's so important. You just assume, like seeing the big picture, that's something that dyslexic people are absolutely brilliant at. So we solve problems from, looking at the big picture, the top down. And that's just something that we have to do because it's the way we think. But that's a hugely vital skill in anything that you do. And we really are better at it than people who are not dyslexic, or most people anyway. So it's really just understanding those skills.
I hear you there, certainly. So if one were to internalize a belief like, oh, I'm dumb, or I'm no good at blank, a broad domain, when in fact the truth of the matter is more nuanced. It's like, oh, actually, I have some superpowers over here and some difficulties over there. But when I compare my difficulties to what everyone else seems to be doing just fine with no trouble whatsoever, I might falsely infer that, I'm just not that bright. I guess certain career opportunities are just not available to me.
Yeah, and it's that thing, I'm not that academic is one that I hear a lot, but Cambridge University always say that they have a huge number of dyslexics on those PhD programs. So if you can, dyslexics can get through education and can excel. And I think you're quite likely to be put off the academic route at an early age when you're struggling at school. And I had a really, really tough first few years at school. And sort of 8 years old, I thought I was really stupid because I couldn't do what the other kids could do. And there was I wasn't picked up as dyslexic then, and there was no support for my strengths. And I then went to a new school that was phenomenal, and they instantly picked up I was dyslexic. They gave me incredible support for the things that I was struggling with, but also were just interested in what I was good at and really nurtured those strengths. And I think that's something that the whole reason I do the work I do and write the books I write and do the podcasts I do is because I really want people to understand, dyslexic people to understand that they are brilliant. They have a different way of thinking, and it is a phenomenally brilliant way of thinking.
Well, let's unpack that. What is this different way of thinking and its advantages and the dyslexic thinking skills?
So, as I mentioned before, dyslexic people have, well, according to the World Economic Forum, and according to some research we did with Randstad Enterprise, the four most sought after skills are creative thinking, communication and interpersonal skills, adaptability and resilience, and complex problem solving. All of those skills are things that dyslexics really excel at. And I can give you, as well as knowing that they're the skills that every workplace is looking for, I can give you some real life examples of where organizations or career routes really fit well into those thinking skills. So, for instance, we work very closely with GCHQ, which is the British Intelligence Agency. They have actively been recruiting dyslexic spies since they started 100 years ago. And the reason that they are actively recruiting dyslexics is because dyslexic people are really good at this sort of complex problem solving and connecting the dots. So they can connect completely different things together to spot a pattern of communication or to spot a trend. And that's in intelligence, or the sort of intelligence that GCHQ do. That's exactly what they do. They're looking for cyber crimes, or they're looking for communication to see where terrorist groups are connecting and planning things. So dyslexic people are really good at looking and joining up those interconnected things. 40% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic, and that's because dyslexic people need to be able to see the big picture, be able to sell their ideas, but also build incredible and motivate incredible teams around them. So those are two areas where dyslexic people really excel. You also find lots and lots of dyslexic people in things like, surprisingly, journalism and TV presenting or communicating, podcast hosts or YouTube channel hosts. A lot of those people are dyslexic because we're very good at storytelling. We're brilliant at simplifying things, of seeing really complex issues and simplifying them. So they're all skills that we don't test in schools, and a psychometric test wouldn't pick up, but they're really vital skills in every workplace now.
Well, can you help me understand what it is about our brains and the means by which they go they process, they interact with the world and process information, such that a person with dyslexia will typically struggle with one set of things, but excel in the other. Is there a common linkage or big picture factor that kind of illuminates or explains what's going on here?
So it is literally the way our brains process information. So, for instance, dyslexic people, we think holistically, if you like. So we like to see the big picture. We like to see all of the facts. So we can then come down and drill down into how we're going to do things. Non-dyslexic people tend to think sequentially. So they'll go step by step by step, whereas we need to see where is the end, where does it all join together, and then let's come back and go through the process. We also are very multisensory thinkers. So when we're making decisions, doing things, we tend to take in lots of different things, which is what makes us very good with people, because we can read people. We look at cues that maybe other people wouldn't see. We're kind of seeing the person as a whole, if you like, and the situation as a whole. So those are two areas. Whereas probably most people who are not dyslexic may be a little more less multisensory. It's more sort of what you see is what you get and may not be reading the nuances. Then when it comes to the struggles, we tend to have problems with our working memory. So if you think of memory as a shelf and you're putting books onto the shelf, so if you've got lots of books on the shelf, that is a real problem for dyslexic people, because we tend to focus on 1, 2, or 3, and then we've forgotten those 1, 2, or 3 as you get onto the next one. So that's when if you're giving a dyslexic person lots of commands and saying, right, I want you to do this and then do that and then something else and something else, you tend to kind of lose where you've got to. An example of that would be if somebody gives you directions. Thank God for Google Maps. But when somebody gives you directions, says, right, go down the road and you turn right and then you walk for 10 minutes and you turn left and it's the first, next left and next right. I mean, but I'm kind of thinking, hang on a minute, I get to the end of the road. Am I supposed to be going right or left? Because I'm trying to remember what they said next and I've forgotten them. But if I see a map, I can visualize where I need to go. So it's just a different way of processing the instructions versus looking at something which is as clear as daylight to me where I need to be going. So it's that kind of thing. And dyslexic thinking actually was put into the dictionary as a noun back in 2022 when it was also added as a skill on LinkedIn. And the dictionary definition for dyslexic thinking is an approach to problem solving, assessing information and learning, often used by people with dyslexia, that involves pattern recognition, spatial reasoning, lateral thinking, and interpersonal communication. So that, in a dictionary definition, sums up what dyslexic thinking is.
Okay. Well, so yeah, let's hear some examples of cool stories of people with dyslexia working their strengths and skills to achieve great results.
So a great resource for cool stories is my podcast, Lessons in Dyslexic Thinking. We're just next week about to release our third series. The first person that I interview for the third series is Erin Brockovich, the amazing campaigner who featured in that film of her life, which Julia Roberts acted as her. Dyslexic people do tend to make really brilliant change makers. We don't like the status quo. We love a challenge. If you tell us something can't be done, it just makes us really want to do it. And you often find that we have a really strong sense of justice and right and wrong. Erin tells the most amazing story about how she kind of worked her way into a job that she was completely unqualified for as a legal clerk working for a law firm in California. And I think the guy who hired her actually felt sorry for her because she was a single mom and she needed some money. So he gave her a chance and gave her a job and basically said, do this filing. Just here's loads of boxes, just go and do the filing. And she opened up this box that was all about Hinckley, the place that we know she went on to do the big lawsuit against. And she looked through all the files and she could see a pattern of things going wrong and health issues for all of the residents in Hinckley. She was supposed to be just putting the filing away and just sticking things into drawers, but she started looking at everything that was there. And she's got a really amazing visual memory. And she could see that children were getting sick and things were going wrong. So she went to her boss and said, look, I'm looking at this and I think there's a really big issue here. And he said, look, you're supposed to be a filing clerk. You need to just file things away. And she was so dogged because she could see there was something wrong. And eventually her boss let her go out to Hinckley to meet the people and understand what was going on. And from that, from her spotting a pattern in the paperwork that she saw that something was going wrong, she then went and found out about all of the things that were happening in Hinckley and the fact that the big company was poisoning the water, and saw that right through to the end until they got the biggest legal claim in American history. So that was somebody who had no qualifications, was incredibly determined and really wanted to make a difference. Another amazing story, actually in the last series, I interviewed Bob Ballard, who is the explorer who discovered the Titanic. And he talks about how he was on, he was doing a project for the Navy, and he was out at sea and he'd been looking for the Titanic for ages and ages, but he was actually doing another project. And it was in the area that they thought the Titanic was. And he just got a sense that the Titanic was exactly where he was in the ocean. And he persuaded his team to dive. And they were all saying, look, there's no evidence here. And he said, look, I just know it's here. I sense, I feel it. I'm putting all these things together. It's here. And they did a very, very deep dive and sure enough found the Titanic. So that's, using intuition and actually putting a lot interconnected pieces together.
That's really cool. And with the Titanic and the Aaron Brockovich story, it is very effective in highlighting the unique ability that can also lead to social difficulty. It's like, what do you mean the Titanic's here? And then like you I could see how in many circumstances, what happens is, we don't go searching for the Titanic. We go and say, that guy has a screw loose, or some sort of demeaning, unfair judgment or characterization. And so, or no, this is not your job. Go ahead and continue filing the things. It's seeing something that others don't is already a cause for potential social rebuke or isolation. And then it's not too hard to believe, I guess I just don't know. And they would know better. They're the lawyers. They're the divers and explorers. And I see that pattern, how that could very easily unfold there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's having that understanding work environment where people will allow you to make those leaps of reasoning. I was talking to, also on my podcast, I've talked to the former director actually of GCHQ, and we talked to spies at GCHQ as well. And they have something called the 24/7 Center. And that's where you have a series, lots of spies actually sitting there looking at communications right around the world. So from emails to, it's amazing how people spy on this, isn't it? But it's a good thing in this instance because they're stopping cybercrime and terrorist attacks. But they look at right across social media to look at seeing if they can find patterns. And in the 24/7 Center, what happens if you think you've seen something, you then go to your boss and say, right, this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a whole pattern of things happening here. And because they need to act quickly and it needs to be an instant, okay, there's a problem, we need to stop it. They don't have to do what you would normally have to do in the workplace, which is, okay, I get where you're going with this, but go away and tell me how you've actually made those connections. I need to see the process behind how you've made those connections. They don't have to do that because they are well enough qualified and experienced enough to know that if they see a pattern, there's a problem, they need to do something about it. And I think what's frustrating for so many dyslexic people is that until we have the confidence to really believe in our abilities, we can see patterns, we can spot things, we can see opportunities in businesses and things. But often other people can't see those things until we explain how we've got there. And we often can't explain how we've got there. It's just a sense, or we've put some thoughts together, 2 + 2 = 10. And often it's very frustrating until your teammates understand your strengths and you really understand them yourself.
All right. And so how do we build on those strengths, these skills?
First thing is to learn about them. So as I mentioned, we have free training for the workplace. We actually have free training for teachers in schools. And we have the podcast. We have a whole series of information on our website. So the first thing is to learn about them. I've already also have 2 books. I have a children's book, which is being released on the 27th of March on Dorland and Kindersley. And I have a book on Penguin called This is Dyslexia, which is out at the moment. And that will teach you lots and lots about dyslexia and dyslexic thinking as well. And once you start unraveling it and learning about it, you'll either spot it in yourself or you'll definitely spot it in colleagues and friends around you.
All right. Well, any top tips, do's or don'ts you want to share before we hear about your favorite things?
If you're a dyslexic person, don't spend time trying to get better at your weaknesses. Delegation is the key to everything. And every successful person, dyslexic or not, has learned that delegating what they're not so good at is the best way to be productive. So lean into your strengths 100% and be open about your strengths and your challenges with others.
Big thanks to Kate for sharing her wisdom with us. And big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. One sponsored checkout is strawberry.me Career Coaching. Having real clarity and direction can make or break your career. If it seems like you're putting in the work but not seeing your career take off, some coaching might be just the ticket. Strawberry.me matches you with certified career coaches who help you gain clarity on what you really want next in your career, develop a results-driven strategy, and stay accountable. And they can also help you flourish beyond career issues. I had a fantastic session with my coach, Brett, about handling stress from so many responsibilities in so many areas. He was fun. He was wise. He just really got me. We had some laughs and a good time and a good rapport. And he gave me an exercise that has been so quick and so effective for me. I've been doing it every day. So if you're ready to take control and build momentum in your career, go to strawberry.me/awesome to claim your $50 credit. That's strawberry.me/awesome. Because awesome careers don't just happen, you make them happen. All right. Well, now could you share a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
When we did our first report, The Value of Dyslexia with EY, the then CEO of EY said, you wouldn't employ Superwoman and tell her how bad she was with kryptonite. You'd make sure that you told her how brilliant she was with all the things that she was good at. So I think that's probably my favorite quote. And I try and live by that. Try not to do my kryptonite.
Okay. And a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
We've just done an amazing report called Intelligence 5.0. It came out, we launched it during UN General Assembly Week. At the time, we launched the University of Dyslexic Thinking, which is a short course university on Open University. The Intelligence 5.0 report is full of incredible insights, research from all over the world, but also really leans into the fact that the way that we're testing and measuring in schools is completely outdated in an AI world.
Okay. And a favorite book?
A book I read many years ago, which sort of started me on my journey of really understanding dyslexic thinking, was Dan Pink, A Whole New Mind. It's old now, but I love that book.
And a favorite habit?
I've tried to meditate. I try and just have a few minutes of calm every day, whether it's sitting in the garden, taking in nature and listening to the bird sounds, but just trying to take 5 minutes a day to do nothing and clear your mind.
Okay. And is there a key nugget you share that really seems to connect and resonate with folks? They quote it back to you often?
Do what you're good at. Do what you love. Find your passion. Do what you love, because that will take you far in life, whatever it is.
Okay. And if folks want to learn more or get in touch, where would you point them?
Kate Griggs. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm a top voice on LinkedIn. madebydyslexia.org is our website, and both my books are available in all good bookstores, but also on Amazon. So this is Dyslexia and Extraordinary People for Kids.
Okay. And you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
I think for every dyslexic, just really learn about your dyslexic thinking skills and understand what they are, and add that you are a dyslexic thinker to your LinkedIn profile, because companies are now actively looking for dyslexic thinkers. And if you don't add it as a skill, they won't be able to find you.
All right. Kate, thank you.
Thank you very much. Great to join you.
conversation with Kate is so valuable because when it comes to folks who are dyslexic or on the autism spectrum, or just have a very different set of styles for running their brain or strengths, it's natural to assume that if other folks are saying things very different than what we would say, and we don't immediately understand them, then they're just an idiot. And that is so false, and we miss out on so much goodness that's unlocked inside other folks' brains if we don't take a moment, slow down, stop, pause, think, recognize a different approach is going on here, and that could be tremendously valuable in supplementing our own thoughts and problem-solving processes, identifying unseen things and making the whole team so much better. Great stuff from Kate. If you want to check out the show notes or the transcript or the links to items that we've referenced, please drop on by awesomeatyourjob.com/EP1049. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.